Hi, it's Dr. Michael Craig. By now, you've probably got the free CD entitled The 7 Secrets of a Six-Figure Coach, and I want to go over just a few of those things and clarify a few things here in this video, so thank you for watching. The 7 secrets, as you've come to listen to already, are connect with your inner greatness, number 1. Number 2 is avoid attracting fear and failure. I talked about mind viruses in that one. Number 3, develop powerful and loving relationships, both in your practice and outside your practice. Number 4, transform the lives of others using a powerful technique. And I mentioned the logical soul as being a powerful technique, but there are others. Depending on the circumstances, depending on what is needed, that's the technique you use. 5, be known as the expert in your field. I also talked about this in my marketing videos. 6, swim in the river of abundance. And 7, inspire others through your own example. Now, as far as those 7 steps, obviously I went into them in much more detail in my interview with the best-selling author Jason Oman, and I covered a lot of detail in those points. I did want to mention, however, that as far as the difference, somebody expressed a difference between, what's the difference between connecting with your inner greatness and swimming in the river of abundance? Well, there is a difference, and I just want to explain a little bit about that, and then we'll move on to another thing here. First of all, connecting with your inner greatness simply means understand that you are the source. When you stop blaming outside reasons for things not working, for example, you're putting power outside yourself. When you start complaining, when you start feeling pessimistic, when you start looking down on yourself, when you start self-criticism, all of these things can diminish your greatness. Now, I'm not talking about running around saying, I am great, looking in the mirror and just saying affirmations over and over and over, mindlessly. That's not what I'm talking about. There has to be a connection with your inner greatness in your gut. And if it's not in your gut, you're not feeling that connection. And so what I do personally is my wife and I constantly use the technique Logical Soul to get in touch with that greatness, to get in touch with the idea that, you know what, I have this thought, this weak feeling, I have this something that's popping up that's less than ideal. And a lot of times I find that, you know what, that's just like a passing cloud. Something is passing through that just wasn't me. It wasn't, it was one of those, life is a bummer clouds, and it just sort of happened to float by. And if that's the case, a lot of times you can just let stuff go. And I know that sounds very simplistic, but it works. A lot of times if you're having something where you're feeling really depressed or really bummed out, I remember last weekend, just as an example, nothing was working right. I was having all these negative thoughts. I was having strange dreams. A lot of things were happening. I thought, well, you know, this is very strange. And then I learned that a lot of other people were having problems that same weekend. Now, what is that? Now, maybe there's an astral cloud of negativity floating through the atmosphere, and I just happen to pick it up. Doesn't really matter. I mean, the fact of the matter is we can analyze things to death, and we can look at things and we say, where does the negativity come from? That's like trying to figure out where the darkness comes from. Same sort of thing. In other words, you're not going to discover the source of the negativity. What you do is you bring in the light. It's called the second element. And when you bring in the light, the negativity automatically disappears. So part of that light is to understand that you are connected to greatness as a birthright. That's the first thing to understand. Secondly, when negativity comes, it simply means that your birthright has been submerged just enough to where that negativity can overshadow that. And sometimes it's very simple, just letting go of the idea that this negativity is yours. A lot of times we think, just because we have a negative thought, we think, well, that's my negative thought. Why am I thinking negative thoughts? And then we start looking at our own negativity and finding out what happened in our childhood, what happened here and there. Sometimes it's just as simple as just closing your eyes, taking a deep breath, and just letting it go. Also, swimming in the river of abundance is a very important factor in that when you begin to see your greatness, then you also begin to understand that this greatness is tied to abundance, and that abundance is all around you all the time. I used to be afraid day in and day out that I was in debt, that I owed money, that somebody was going to demand things from me, that money just went out and it felt like a pinch. I couldn't get the money in. And Maharishi used to use the example of, say, someone who has $1 million in the bank. If he spends $1 or $2 or $10 or $3, $10, $5, whatever, it's hardly noticed because he's got $1 million in the bank. Now, if you've got $100 in the bank and you owe rent for $400, guess what? You're in debt. I mean, you don't know where that money's coming from. You're in fear. You're in concern all the time because you're constantly under siege worrying about where this money is coming from. So that consciousness of lack, that fear of lack, and obviously you can look around, and if you are in debt, you could say, well, it's very real. However, let me suggest one thing, and that feeling comes first. And a lot of times if the feeling comes because of your pushing away, and I found that this is something that happens to us, is that we literally push away the abundance that is ours. We have to actually emotionally and mentally push away the abundance in order for it not to come to us. In fact, I was doing this most of my life, and I suggest you look at that as well. So those are the two things, the difference between connecting with your inner greatness and swimming in the river of abundance. They're very, very close, very connected. However, there's a slight difference that I wanted to make for that, and I hope you enjoyed the CD. I'll be talking a little bit more about some of the other points as we go along. This is Dr. Michael Craig. Thanks for joining us.